Alright, yo, what's up? It's Alan, aka Ali Boy, and we're back again with The City Speaks. Now, I'm usually at home, but now I'm at my church home. And I have a man right here, he's very passionate at what he does, and I enjoy what he does. So, it's my pastor, Pastor Cornell Sampson. But I know him as CJ. So, Pastor CJ, I want to start off in asking you, where did this all start? Where did everything start?
Well, everything started with my mom, who you'll hear in a moment, basically predestined before I even came about. But fast forwarding past from that, it all started, I want to say here specifically, but most of it was cultivated here in this church, Them Come Missionary Baptist Church. This is where I grew up. I was baptized. I confessed Christ here. I played the drums here, worship leader here, began my first sermon ministry here, was licensed to preach, ordained here, and ultimately I pastor here now. So this is my home church. And so it all started here for the most part.
That's cool. That's nice. Hey, all birds don't leave the nest. That's basically what you're saying right now. So would you say pastoring is your greatest achievement?
One of them. Yeah, it is definitely one of my greatest achievements. And I don't look at pastoring as an achievement. It's more so, and we all say it's a calling. It is an achievement. It is a high office, but it's a labor. It's serving. So my perspective, many look at it as an achievement, but I look at it as just another way of serving.
So what would you say your most achievement is? Your best achievement is?
My best achievement, I don't know. It's and that's another thing. I don't look at myself as achieved. And I'm not even giving it a false modesty or anything like that. But I would say today, my greatest achievement is humility and just being everyday people, as far as staying out of trouble, staying out of the way, cultivating my family and my son. So I would say he has changed the trajectory of my life. So I think my son he shifted the dynamic in achievement. So if I would say it's achievement, I didn't do it by myself, obviously, but I would say my son probably is the greatest achievement.
Of course. Gotta love the kids.
That's right.
Would you push him towards being a pastor, or just let him, take his own way?
Absolutely not. I will not push him to it. If anything, I would try to steer him away from it, more so than trying to steer him to it, just because of I understand the walk. I wasn't a preacher. I basically was a preacher's child, even though he was my grandfather. But I understand firsthand everything. I've seen it before I even became a pastor. Even the pressure just for being a preacher, and a young preacher at that. So if it's for him, God will allow it to happen, but I wouldn't encourage or steer him either way.
Right. You mentioned your grandfather, and how much of an influence was him in your upbringing?
Yeah, he was the quintessential influence in all of my upbringing, all of my life. I always wanted to be around him, always wanted to do what he did. So I spent a significant amount of time, even in my childhood and youth, with him. So, and when I look at resume, many say you are your grandfather's child, or your grandfather's grandson, or whatever. He had his hands in several different pots amongst the movers and shakers of, locally and abroad and around as well. So I would say he had a significant influence on everything of my foundation.
Great. And we all know behind every great man is a great woman. So I want to bring up the First Lady, Pastor CJ's wife, Deja.
Hey. How are you?
I'm good. So, what was it like dating a future pastor?
That's a really good question. When we started dating, he was just a preacher, but we knew, like, he made it very clear to me that eventually he will be moving into a pastoral position. But as far as like what was like different from dating a regular guy from dating a preacher, it wasn't really a big difference.
No pressure.
No pressure. Maybe a little bit of pressure, because when I met him, my hair was like really short and red. I know it's red right now, but it was very short. It was very red, and I always was concerned of my image and making sure that my image best represented him. So when I knew he was moving into his pastoral position, I changed my hair color back black. I was more concerned about what I'm wearing, just to make sure I represented him better. You know, I cleaned my Instagram, Facebook was cleaned. I don't even care if it was a picture from 2008. Like, everything was clean, so I know that we will be best representing him the best way.
So did you feel like you needed to change or you wanted to change?
I don't think it was a change. I think it was kind of growth.
Okay.
It was just growth. So when I got with him, it was more growth than it was ever change.
So what was it like the first time you experienced Pastor CJ's preaching?
The first time I heard him preach was at the church in Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of it?
Galilee Baptist.
Galilee Baptist. I remember that day to the T. It is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So you know we had to drive there, and this was like the first time we've ever had church together. So like, you know, women take longer to get ready, like, and we had to drive. So it was like, come on, where you at?
Okay.
And honestly, I kind of YouTubed him before hearing him preach, because I came from a primitive Baptist church, which is very by the book. It's very strict. They do not have the same preaching style at all. So I kind of YouTubed him, and when I had YouTubed him, it was such an old video too. He was like maybe 16, the video that popped up on YouTube, and I heard him like shouting, like, you know, his clothes. And I was like, I've never experienced that before. So when we went to Galilee in Kalamazoo, his grandmother whispered to me, like, have you heard him preach before? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you're in for a treat. And it was so inspiring. It was inspiring, and it kind of opened my eyes to him a little bit more, because I didn't know he was as smart as he was until he started preaching. I remember the sermon. The sermon was about the paras, and you broke down like everything with the parachute, paraphrase. And I was like amazed at how he could bring all this into a sermon, and how I could understand, because at the time I wasn't getting fed like that. So I could understand like what he was preaching, what he was talking about. And I was fed that day. So I was in for a treat. And then he started hooping. And, you know, I was like, wait a minute. Because, you know, this was like, it was all new. Yeah, it was a culture shock. It was like all new for me. Like, everybody was going crazy, so I'm going crazy. And my hair was still red. And I didn't expect the pastor to bring me down. Because no one really knew that we were boyfriend and girlfriend. Pastor knew we became far. So he brought me down. The women was rolling their necks, and it's his girlfriend. So it was definitely a really great experience. My first time hearing him preach.
Awesome. Well, we know there's a little black boy in church. There's a strong mama, real close to him. So I would definitely love to bring Pastor CJ's mother. So, what was it like raising Pastor CJ?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Pastor CJ was a different kid. He was different, stubborn, but always loved the Lord. Overall, a good kid, but no heartaches, no sleepless nights, really nothing like that. He was good, but interesting.
It was school for me.
School, yeah. School until senior year. senior year. You know, that probably was the only thing, like, hey, your grades in, this and that, you doing this and that, but he came out, but it was something raising him. But I had a lot of help, so.
Absolutely. And one more question. What is it like having your son as your pastor?
Well, because this has been all his life, was born and raised in my parents' home, which my father was the pastor, Let Them Come first. And to have him, in church all his life, loving the Lord, he chose to be in church before a playground, a birthday party, anything, in kids and activities or anything. He wanted to be in church. He was with my mother and father a lot when I was at work. He was raised as a single mother. I was raising him, but I worked, and my parents always made sure he was in church, which he wanted to be. He wasn't that kid. Like I was that kid, I gotta be in church Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I gotta go here. It was always all right with them, but nothing really changed other than me being more prouder of my son, seeing him elevate from little preacher boy, joining church every Sunday as a child. It started out as cute, every Sunday when the doors open, he's joining, to where it got to where they just ignored him, like, oh, they know he's joining church this, to my father saying, hey, wait a minute, and asking him what he doing up here, and he was able to tell him, and so he joined the church to preaching. I think he was 8 he was 8 years old the first time in Let Them Come here at this location. He I want to say his first sermon, but it was cute. It was, I think he was just amazed having command over the people, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. But then, getting older, and I was always amazed at where did he learn this? When is he studying? What is he doing? But I know he was always at the pastor's council with my father. I never really saw him reading the Bible, whatever, but obviously he was doing, I can remember the day my father called me, and I think I was out of town, and he had to speak, and he was like, I don't know where this boy getting this from, or what he, awesome. But then it wasn't social media for them to record it and everything. But being his mother, I do read out, his mother. I respect him as my son, as my adult son, and then as my pastor. It's never, we joke, I'm talking to you as your pastor, or I'm talking to you as your mother, but no, as I feel no different than when my father was my pastor, or under another pastor. But I give him that respect, and it's awesome.
That's great. Family and worship. Family and fellowship. If you want to see more of Pastor and his beautiful family, and more of me, you can come on and step into Let Them Come. I'm going to drop the location down there in the description. You can also find us on Facebook, Let Them Come. Also find me on Facebook on The City Speaks. If you've been here this whole time, like, subscribe, and turn on that post notification. All right, see you.